If you're somebody that has ADHD, or you have a child with ADHD, or you know somebody that has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, here are a few things that might be able to help you, natural remedies, before we revert to medication, and especially at a young age. Let's first begin with a recent trial they did on 76 9-year-olds in Egypt that had ADHD, and they gave them the ADHD drug alone, or they gave them that, it was atomexetine was the drug, or atomexetine plus postbiotics in the form of a drink. Now they had 2 postbiotic drinks a day with the drug, or just the drug alone. Now, what are postbiotics before we continue? Well, postbiotics are things that probiotics produce. Probiotics are your gut bacteria, right? And they can actually make things. They can make things that affect not only cognition and mood, but appetite, fat storage, muscle growth, immune function, a whole lot of things. So it's really important to have a robust, well-functioning gut microbiome. Now, prebiotics feed the probiotics. So prebiotics are things like soluble fiber, right? And things like polyphenols even potentially. That majorly soluble fiber that will feed these bacteria, and then they produce things. So postbiotics. So what are some examples of postbiotics? There would be things like SCFAs, short-chain fatty acids like acetate or butyrate, which can affect levels of serotonin in the brain. That's your happy hormone/neurotransmitter. They can actually produce, can your bacteria, B vitamins, B1, 2, 5, 7, 9, those can all be made by your gut bacteria. And they're another example of postbiotics. So now you know what postbiotics are. And they had a drink that contained those, again, twice a day, or they had just the drug for 12 weeks. After the 12 weeks, the results showed the group that had the postbiotics had not less impulsivity, that was no different, but they had significantly improved attention as compared to the group that had the drug alone, and they had less parental reported behavioral symptoms in the children, okay? So there was a benefit to having the postbiotics, and we'll talk about this more at the end. But for those of you that have a short attention span and you want to hear the rest of this video and what's good for ADHD in general, well, let's start with lifestyle alterations, lifestyle modifications. You want to be outside more. You want to avoid allergens. Maybe try something like Tai Chi or yoga to harness that energy. You know, you want to exercise, get some of that energy out, of course. But those are great to help you focus. They're good for your body anyway, right? Now, if you have a really severe case, or your child does, you can look into something called EEG biofeedback, also known as neurofeedback. And this is something where they'll basically hook up stuff to the kid's brain, and they'll look at the electrical stimulation in the brain according to certain activities that they're doing, and they'll try to alter that based on behavior, right? So they'll tell them to do a certain thing. You know, behavioral therapy itself can be helpful too. They'll do a certain thing, and they'll affect the stimulation, and they'll say, okay, let's try to do other things that will kind of tone that down or tone something up, and typically toning down in whatever way that they would. So that's a pretty accurate way of attacking it, you know, but well before that, you should try everything else that we list here, and it may very well just take care of the problem. Okay, so that's pretty much what we have in lifestyle. In terms of diet, you want a lot more polyunsaturated fatty acids. You want more monounsaturated fats as well. You want more unsaturated fats in things like fish, salmon, mackerel, tuna, herring, sardines, anchovies, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nuts and seeds, egg yolk, great, you know, things like that. So coconut oil has fats in it, but those are majorly saturated, albeit it has MCTs, which are good for fat burning, but we want a lot of unsaturated fat, and that's the big thing. We want to eat whole foods from nature. We say this all the time, but this is really important for somebody with ADHD. You don't want to have any refined or processed foods. You want to stay away from any food additives. You want to stay away from food colorings or dyes. That's a huge one, okay? So that's what we have generally in terms of diet, okay, without getting into all the specific foods and foods that somebody shouldn't eat. But number one, everybody's body is different, and so what does that mean? Well, one of the best ways you can approach correcting the diet of somebody with ADHD, according to the evidence in human trials, is something called the few foods diet. The few foods diet is an elimination diet, where you basically eliminate a lot of foods at once, and then you say, okay, let's slowly reintroduce them one by one, and let's see what's causing the symptoms. Okay, so then you can just eliminate that food once the symptoms come back, if that indeed was causing the symptoms. Do your own type of controlled experiment in that regard. Maybe just doing it for one day wouldn't be that accurate of a result. There are a lot of other players that could be involved. Maybe they didn't get as much sleep, maybe they did this, maybe they didn't exercise that day, and but the point is, that's another good thing we can do. Probably shows the most promise in terms of some dietary intervention, regardless of specific types of food that we see with ADHD. So what are natural supplements that might be able to help improve attention and focus and blood flow to the brain and boost levels of catecholamines, which we're going to talk about all that in a second, the science behind it. But we have things like omega-3s. We have Alcar, that's acetyl L-carnitine. We have our postbiotics. I think prebiotics and probiotics would also be probably a good option for these kids. We have phosphatidylserine. We have pycnogenol, also known as pine bark extract. We have inositol. We have saffron. We have L-theanine. Okay? We have ginkgo biloba. Now, these are all great in terms of things that may have a relatively substantial, tangible physiological effect and can affect neuronal pathways, right? But we want to look first, even before trying all of those. Some of them are just great to have anyway, like our omega-3s, right? Those are healthy fats, right? Healthy unsaturated fats, and we want a lot of those anyway, right? So that would be one of the top ones you would take. We want to make sure that we look at vitamin deficiencies. We want to make sure they're not deficient in anything. And so we definitely want to cover the bases with a multivitamin. Absolutely cover with a multivitamin. Magnesium, zinc, vitamin B6, and vitamin D. Those are the top 5 recommendations, multivitamin, vitamin B6, magnesium, and zinc, that we would want to look at first. So, and then we mentioned a bunch of other supplements that you could try. I wouldn't take them all at once. I'd probably take them, one by one, slowly adding them in. Talk to your doctor if you're on any medications. Hopefully this can get you off of them. You guys can come up with some plans for taking a homeopathic approach to reducing the symptoms of ADHD, right? Now, when we look at ADHD, something in the catecholamine pathway may also be helpful. So what the hell is that, and why, right? So the catecholamines are dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, okay? And kids with ADHD, people in general, typically have lower levels of these catecholamines, whether it's that their body isn't producing enough, that it's a receptor issue, that they're not able to bind them well enough and trigger an intracellular response that would otherwise make them, say, pay attention or calm down or something of that nature, or focus, right, whatever. Or an issue in general with, say, dopamine signaling, for example. And norepinephrine is really the biggest one, but also dopamine, okay? So a lot of the supplements that I had just mentioned, like L-theanine, like ginkgo biloba, like Alcar, affect levels of catecholamines, okay? Not to mention also serotonin, which I believe is technically an indolamine, but still helpful, right? So because it makes you feel happy, and that would be good. Maybe they're more excited to read or whatever it is, right? But if we can affect this catecholamine pathway, then maybe we can naturally help. So how does this whole pathway go? We said dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, but it starts way before that. Starts at L-phenylalanine. That's converted to L-tyrosine. That's converted to L-dopa, also known as levodopa. That's then converted into dopamine, into norepinephrine, and finally epinephrine, aka adrenaline, right? And so, if you want more dopamine and norepinephrine, which is where we're trying to really hit in this pathway, instead of having to take just pure dopamine and pure norepinephrine, well, we could have natural supplements that will help our body to produce more of it, as aforementioned. Or we could also give the precursors to these catecholamines. As we mentioned, L-phenylalanine, L-tyrosine, so those might be worth looking into as well, at least to make sure you're getting enough of them from the diet, and if you're not, to also supplement with them. Now, it's important to make sure with these vitamins that we mentioned that you're reaching RDAs, that your child is reaching the recommended dietary allowance in each of the categories. And if you're not sure if they are, you want blood work on them, we'll have them take an amount in a multivitamin or some low dosages that are pretty safe to ensure at least they're hitting the mark, right? And then we could see what else might be causing the problems. that is what we have for you. My fine-feathered, unable to pay attention much of the time friends, like me as a kid. I was diagnosed with ADHD, and you know what they did? They said nothing of exercise, they said nothing of nutrition, they said nothing of lifestyle modifications, nothing of natural supplements, nothing of diet, anything like that. You know what they said? Let's give the kid Adderall. They said, let's give the kid Vyvanse, or dextroamphetamine, or Ritalin, right? And, you know, I mean, that's just, you're constantly slapping a Band-Aid on this issue instead of getting to the root of the problem, which is what I like to do, we like to do as chiropractors, is try to get to the root cause of an issue, is what so much of our practice is based on, and philosophy. But, you know, you guys take this and do what you want with it. But I do have personal experience with ADHD. Am I currently on any medications like that? No. Thankfully, I'm not on any medications. I don't need to be. So, before we say hi to everybody and go, we got a couple birthdays up in here. We got Palmer, Piana, and Eric Soto. So, happy birthday to you two. Two psychos that I played rugby with, and both great guys. Eric Soto might be a little bit crazier. Palmer, I don't know. Palmer's crazy, but he's also got his shit together. Soto, I'm not saying you don't. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Palmer and Eric. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Happy birthday, guys. It's your day in the Book of When Wellness. I will definitely see you sooner than later. And if you have any patients that have ADHD, now you have a video that you can show them to hopefully give them some guidance and help them move forward. Who do we got on here? I'll say what's up to my friends. You guys are my friends. El Tony, definitely my friend. Guy's a beast. What are you doing? Check out Tony Williams. Guy's an animal. He's an actor. He's a bodybuilder. He's the most interesting man in the world. Mikey, how you doing? Fast Fit. Isaiah, what's up? Arnold, how you doing? Junior, fix your ass. Scoopster, I like it. Thanks, Joshy Joe, appreciate you. Very kind. You guys are very kind. Who else do we got? Meg, what's up? Christian, how you doing? George, does anybody have ADHD here? And any questions? Bren McCann. Josh and George, first one's on, man. Thanks, guys. Yeah, my brother. Got you, El Tony. And Denise Brito. As for now, that's all we got for you, folks. We'll see you tomorrow, baby. Not sure where, not sure when, but we'll see you then. Have a great one. Thanks a lot. Happy When Wellness. See you later.